Hey there guys, what's up? It's Autobot Mike 18 here, back with another movie review. Guys, in this video I'm going to be reviewing another sequel. The summer just continues with sequels, reboots, and all that fun stuff that we all love and sometimes fear going into. Not saying I was for this movie, but I could have been. Anyway guys, the movie that I am going to be reviewing in this video is the comedy sequel, Ted 2. That's right, guys. They decided to make another Ted movie. Like we all asked for that. Anyway, guys, yes, Ted 2, as we all know, is the sequel to Ted, which was released in 2012 and directed by Seth MacFarlane, starring Mark Wahlberg, MacFarlane himself as the voice of Ted, as well as Mila Kunis, who is completely MIA for this movie, but I'll get into that later. And I think that Ted was a big hit. You know, it took in a lot of money. A lot of people were legitimately surprised by it, and it was MacFarlane's directorial debut. I myself had some enjoyment with that film. MacFarlane has since gone on to direct A Million Ways to Die in the West last year, and this year he has released Ted 2. And yeah, so it's the sequel, and as soon as I heard they were releasing Ted 2, I'm like, alright, this could be good, or could be a complete failure. And when the trailers came out, and I'm not going to get into how I felt about the trailers just yet, but what I will do right now is get into my thoughts, or, you know, the overall premise of Ted 2, if you haven't seen already. Also, in case you weren't wondering, this review did not come up opening weekend when this movie came out, because I decided to wait for Bargain Tuesday, because I was really skeptical about this movie. Anyway, with that being said, Ted 2, guys, is set basically, I would say, a year and a half after the events of the first Ted. Ted has married Tammy-Lynn, his girlfriend, his human girlfriend. Ted, of course, voiced by MacFarlane. And still hangs out with good old buddy John Bennett, played by Mark Wahlberg, yet again. And, you know, of course, with marriage comes all the wonderful joys of marriage. You know, being in love with your spouse, fighting with your spouse, throwing things at your spouse, and all of those just lovely, fond memories. So yes, of course, marriage isn't that great. So Ted gets the idea to then ask Tammy-Lynn if she'd like to have a baby with him. So, I don't know, maybe he could do something different with this marriage. So they decide to have a baby, but run into a bunch of problems when they try to get a sperm donor. And then when they look to adoption, things don't look that great for Ted, because the government is basically saying that Ted is not a person and therefore cannot actually, one, be married to Tammy-Lynn and actually, you know, adopt a baby or work, you know, do things that humans do. They're basically saying he's not a person, he's just a freaking stuffed animal, a stuffed toy, and that's really what he is. So obviously this severely upsets Ted, this severely upsets John, and they decide to take this as a case in a court. They decide to bring it to court. They hire an attorney played by Amanda Seyfried in this movie. And there we go. We have our plot for Ted 2 as Ted tries to get his justice and prove that he is a human. That's a pretty big mouthful for a plot for a comedy sequel. But anyway, guys, yes, that's the plot synopsis for Ted 2. Now, really quick. The first Ted. I reviewed it on this channel when it was released in 2012, and the first time I saw that movie, I legitimately enjoyed it. As you can see, I own the Blu-ray. I like this movie, okay? I liked it. I have since watched the movie a second time, and I realized it was not as funny as I first remember it, to be completely honest. There still has its funny moments, and in my opinion, I felt like the movie had heart, and I bought this relationship. I bought this chemistry between Mark Wahlberg and nothing that was sitting there in what was just a CGI bear. And I bought it. I liked it I know that's why I like this movie for that reason. The jokes don't hold up that much, however, to me. And that's why the first Ted was not as good as I originally remembered it being. Just wanted to update you on my thoughts on the first Ted. Then MacFarlane did A Million Ways to Die in the West, and I did not like that movie. I think there was at least 3 scenes where I actually legitimately cracked a smile or laughed in that movie. I think that was just a lazy piece of crap, just that he just rushed through, and I really, because of that, I had big fears for Ted 2. And then I watched the trailers for Ted 2, and then I said, this movie's gonna be shit, okay? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I literally walked into this movie with some of the lowest expectations I've had for a movie all year long, okay? I did not think apart from some of the worst movies I've seen this year so far, I did not think anything of Ted 2. That's why I decided to see it on Bargain Tuesday. I really, really had low expectations because literally every joke in that trailer made me cringe. And seeing ads played over 1 billion times on YouTube, I couldn't take it, and I was like, this movie's gonna suck. I just want to get it over with. But nevertheless, I still had to see it, of course, and review it for you guys. I'm going to say this much for you. Ted 2, okay, is it a good movie? It has its redeeming qualities to it. I will give the movie that. Is this movie as bad as I thought it was going to be? No. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you guys. Then again, my expectations were literally on the floor. I was just dreading going into this movie. I came out and said, you know what? I laughed a couple times. I literally thought I was going to sit there like a stone statue and not even crack a smile. Then the first 2 scenes of the movie happens, and I'm like, oh, I do not want to watch the rest of this. And then the movie got funny, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. I had some fun with this movie. There is fun to be had with Ted 2, okay? Then there's this whole other, main factor of the movie in regards to the writing, where I felt that the movie fell apart a little bit. Other than that, I think some of the jokes actually hit. Some of them were funny and actually made me laugh. Now, I watched this movie at 7:30 tonight on Bargain Tuesday, okay? So my theater is jam-packed. I usually never go to a movie at night because I always know it's so crowded, and I always love to pay the matinee price. But since it was Bargain Tuesday, I decided to go later at night. Not a good idea, by the way. And my theater was jam-packed with the average moviegoers who will literally laugh at a single thing. So they were laughing throughout this entire movie. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's not that funny, guys. But there are moments in this movie where the jokes hit, and I laughed with my audience members. I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe I loved it so much because I was with a big audience who literally laughed at everything, but I don't know. I thought that the jokes worked for some moments in this movie, and that's why I'm going to give Ted 2 as much credit as I do. I think some of the pop culture references worked. I think that the references to certain political things and big news that has hit recently really worked for me. Then I think there were moments that I think were entirely unoriginal and just overall lazy that either could have been taken out of the movie, or I just can't help but say to myself, yeah, MacFarlane, alright, he's writing this scene. He has no idea what he wants to do to end this scene, so he's just going to throw in a reference to a movie that literally makes no sense whatsoever and just make it completely unoriginal, and it'll just get people laughing, whatever. And that happens about 2 or 3 times in this movie, and I'm like, alright, MacFarlane, alright, I'll give you a pass on that one. Alright, just don't do it again. And there are moments where he came up with legitimately unexpected, funny lines. And I was like, alright, I like that. There is one moment, I'm not going to spoil anything, there is one gag about F. Scott Fitzgerald in this movie. It completely messed up the characters because, in my opinion, he made the characters of John and Ted just so dumb in this movie. And they're just so dumb in that scene. It just doesn't work in comparison with the first Ted. But that back and forth just worked for me for some reason. All right, just to give an example of a moment I legitimately laughed at in this movie. Then there are moments where he literally reuses the same joke about 4 or 5 times. There is one recurring gag in this movie that really started to get on my nerves after a while. And I think about the 4th time they were about to use it, a woman in my theater literally said aloud the line that was going to be the line of the joke that was going to appear in the movie, and it appeared in the movie literally right after she said it. So, I mean, you get my point. But in comparison to Ted, I do not think that Ted 2 is a better movie. Yes, there are moments that might be funnier than the first Ted. Because Ted, after I rewatched it, I'm like, alright, this moment doesn't work. This moment's not that funny. I don't know what I was thinking when I thought, oh god, this was so laugh out loud funny. And then, but I think what really won me over with the first Ted were the relationships in this movie and just the insane chemistry and the amazing performances from all these characters. And I think that MacFarlane kind of messed up some of these characters in this movie, and that's why Ted 2 doesn't hold up for me as much. Yes, some of the jokes really hit. Not all of them did, however, and when you have characters that I don't think, are as similar as they are, don't mask who they were in the first movie, and they're just nearly completely different people, I just don't buy into it, and that's ultimately one of my biggest problems with Ted 2. For example, one of the biggest flaws I had with this movie is literally revealed about in the first scene, and it pissed me off to no end. I was just like, they already ruined half of the movie for me. I know everybody is asking, where is Mila Kunis? Where is she? Why is she not back in this movie? They reveal what happens to her character within the first 5 minutes of the movie. And as soon as they said what happened to her, between her and Mark Wahlberg, I said to myself, no, that didn't happen. They literally just couldn't get her back for this movie, and so they just wrote that in. And that pissed me off. And that shows you that we shouldn't have a sequel, but the purpose of the sequel is literally for them to just make money. But Mila Kunis's character would have never done what she did in this movie. They literally just had that in the script just to justify this movie and give Mark Wahlberg a new love interest in the movie, this time around played by Amanda Seyfried. So I didn't buy into that right off the bat. I said, no, that's not Mila Kunis's character. And it completely negated everything that the first movie stood for and the entire plot of that movie for the most part. Mark Wahlberg's character was trying to be a different person after, to be with Mila Kunis, basically. But when she's not even in this movie, you've completely negated what you've set up so well in the first movie, and that's just what brought the movie down for me, and other moments as well like that, where I just don't think they got the characters right, and that's what bothered me. But in the end, getting into things that I think worked for this movie, I think that, yeah, as I said, some jokes worked, some didn't for me. The majority did. I chuckled a bit. I laughed in at least 2 moments that I thought were legitimately funny. I cracked a couple smiles here or there. There's some great pop culture references, some great references to big news stories that have been, released over the years and whatnot. Modern news and everything. There are some old jokes. There's one joke about Justin Bieber, and I'm just like, can we just forget about Justin Bieber? Why? It's not funny anymore to make jokes about him. Okay, I don't know. So there's moments like that don't work, but again, the positives, the performances are very good. I don't think Mark Wahlberg is as good as he was in the first movie, but he's here. I enjoy his presence. I think his character did things I don't necessarily agree with in the movie, but what are you going to do? I think he was a lot dumber in this movie than he was in the first movie, and I didn't buy into that all the way, but just to see Mark Wahlberg, him and MacFarlane do have good chemistry in this movie. It's not as strong as it was in the first Ted, but it worked for me enough in this movie. Amanda Seyfried was fine. We have other characters from the first movie who come back. Giovanni Ribisi. I'll get into his subplot in a second, by the way, without spoiling anything. We have guest cameos here or there. Morgan Freeman makes an appearance right there. All that's fine. The film looks good. It's well shot. The CGI, I think, on Ted is good, as it was in the first movie. It looks good. It's convincing. I don't think anything could replace that epic fight scene that was in the first Ted, because it was just freaking badass the way they did that. And they don't blow me away with anything like that in this movie, but, the CGI is still good. So with that said, before I get into more of the negatives, I'm just going to quickly give my rating for Ted 2, guys. Again, this movie legitimately surprised me. I didn't think I was going to laugh at all in this movie. I really had low expectations. I just thought I was going to come in hating this movie. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to, and for that reason, I'm going to give Ted 2 a grade of a 7.5 out of 10 or a C. I thought I was going to say F. I kid you not, guys. I really thought I was going to, but I didn't, and I'm glad to say that I did not hate this movie like I thought I was going to. But again, getting into the flaws, again, some jokes do not hit. There are some lazy moments in this movie, just like Million Ways to Die in the West, but there is not as nearly as many. This is significantly a better movie than A Million Ways to Die in the West ever was. Again, I don't think that they got all the characters right. Some characters do things that, just I wouldn't think that they'd normally do. Some characters make little cameos from the first movie into this movie, and they ultimately have no place. Giovanni Ribisi's subplot could have been entirely taken out of the movie. It was literally invented just for Hasbro product placement. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. 9 times out of 10, I don't get annoyed by product placement. The insane amount of Hasbro product placement in this movie really started to get on my nerves after a while, okay? There's a scene where they're at a Comic-Con towards the end of the movie, and one of the heads of Hasbro is literally talking about selling Transformers toys. And I'm like, 1, nobody's going to like this moment in the movie because nobody likes Transformers anymore. And 2, what are they doing? So that happened, in my opinion. Just completely unnecessary plot placement for Hasbro. Again, some jokes didn't hit, some did. Some lazy moments here or there. I think some unoriginal moments. Some jokes that were just literally put in there, just to reference something, but they shouldn't have even been there in the first place. I think that this movie took the Paul Blart route of, taking characters that we enjoyed from the first movie and then just completely doing away with them and doing away with how they act normally and just making them dumber, and that's kind of what happened with our two main characters in this movie. With that said, though, again, I did not hate this movie going into it, and that is the biggest praise I can give Ted 2. It's not the funniest movie of the year. The funniest movie of the year is still dope by far. Go see that over this. But it is not even close to one of the worst movies of the year. I will give this movie credit for that. I would say see it on a cheap night or rent it on Netflix at most. It is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not as good as the first Ted, and especially because this has a better story in my opinion. But it could have been significantly worse, guys, and that's the best praise I have for this movie. That being said, guys, thank you so much for watching my review of Ted 2. What did you guys think of the movie? If you've seen it, let me know down below. Did you like the movie? Did you feel it was better than the first? Let me know what you thought of it down below. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.